We know there's plenty of debate about the best state for barbecue in these United States. Some people say it's Texas, others say it's the Carolinas, either north or south. Then there's some people who don't bother with the conflict, they just go for the best of both. That's exactly what today's guest has done. Robbie Robinson's an accountant who decided to wade into the world of barbecue and bring Texas style servings to South Carolina. But he couldn't leave his homeland Carolina roots behind. So now he's combined Texas and Carolina barbecue into one operation at City Limits Barbecue in West Columbia, South Carolina. Since he opened his food truck around 2016, he's been getting plenty of attention for meat smoked with offset heat, just like they do in Texas. And now, with a brick and mortar location, he's smoking pork directly over the coals like they do all around the Carolinas. The good stuff Robbie and the City Limits team are churning out have landed him in Texas Monthly's list of top Texas style barbecue trays served outside the Lone Star State. Robbie's also been named a 2024 James Beard semifinalist for Best Chef in the Southeast. Thanks to our partnership with the Carolina Barbecue Festival, we're talking to Robbie today, and you can meet him during this year's festival, April 5th and 6th at Victoria Yards in Charlotte. But if you want to go, you better hurry. Tickets are going fast. Hey, they may be gone at this point. Visit carolinabbqfest.org to find out how to get your passes for this year's biggest barbecue event in Charlotte. You can find out more about City Limits online at citylimitsq.com or follow Robbie and the business on Instagram under the same name. That's City Limits Q, the letter Q, City Limits Q. For now, find out more about Robbie Robinson and City Limits Barbecue during our conversation on the Low and Slow Barbecue Show. Okay, Robbie Robinson, so excited to have you with us today. Welcome to the Low and Slow Barbecue Show.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you asking me to be on.
Yeah, I want to jump right into it. So where are you from and how did you get into smoking meat low and slow?
I'm from Lexington, South Carolina. Met my wife about a little over 20 years ago, and she was living in Houston or Austin at the time. And we ended up moving out there, getting married. And I had been a chef, kitchen manager, sous chef in Charleston and Columbia back in my college days, back in the 90s. And since then, I became an accountant. And so...
well, that's no fun.
When I was living out in Houston, I'm a Carolina boy, and when I was living out in Houston, I don't recall ever having a Texas barbecue experience or going out to eat Texas barbecue, because every time we went out to a barbecue restaurant in Houston, I always got the pulled pork because I'm a Carolina boy,
right?
And it was never any good. And so one day I said, you know what, the hell with this, I'm going to buy myself one of those little char grill from Lowe's that had the offset on it. I bought one of them and I said, I want to teach myself how to cook pulled pork just like I had back home. Okay, so the whole time I was out there, I never figured out how to cook it. I had no idea what I was doing. And remember, this was in the early 2000s, so this was before there was so much information out on the web. Very, very little information. So fast forward, we moved back to South Carolina, and as we moved back, with my career, I decided, we need to do something else, or see if we can do something else. And I don't know why this came to mind, but I said, well, what if somebody here in town, because at the time there wasn't any of this new school craft barbecue in town. It's pretty much old school stuff. And I said, well, what if somebody did this higher quality craft, chef inspired or chef approach barbecue here in town? And me being the accountant, I said, well, if I can, number one, figure out how to cook it well, but number two, figure out how to sell it in volume, I think we may have a business here. And so, where does this passion come from? I've always loved cooking, and being a Boy Scout, Eagle Scout, I love playing with fire. Like just about most of my friends, and starting to combine those two, and then the whole social media aspect of it. I'm a photographer also, and I really enjoy taking really pretty pictures of food, and
Yeah.
so um, all kinds of life experiences kind of converged, and as I was getting into it. I was telling myself, like, I can't believe this is the this is the business plan. This is my brilliant idea for a business, is to get back into the restaurant business, because I know how hard it is, and it's very difficult to survive in it. But number two, I mean, unicorns make money at it, and most people struggle to get by. And I've just kept on going in every step. I was describing to somebody recently that every turn in this road, this journey that I've been on for 8 years now, I've met the right person
Mm.
who helped me along in one way or the other, that kept the fire burning, if you will. So I've been, I had my own internal passion, but also meeting the right people at the right times, becoming friends with a whole lot of pitmasters, several that are going to be at this festival. I'm really good friends with that. I've been friends with them for years, and all that stuff just kind of snowballed together to fuel this. And probably my internal passion by itself wasn't enough if it wasn't for the camaraderie with some of these guys. I've told them before, like, I would have been out of this a long time ago.
Yeah.
So the passion, it started, just like a fire. Started out as a small flicker of flame, and now, man, it's some days it feels like it's burning out of control, but
Uh-huh.
um, it's been really fun, and I'm just great analogy here. I'm just stacking logs on this fire right now, so I'm I think into fun mode, and hopefully it stays fun.
Yeah, yeah. Well, hey, so tell me, you said you didn't know what you were doing when you got started and out towards Houston using your char grill and your offset smoker. So tell me a little bit about your barbecue learning. How do you feel like you progressed from not knowing what you're doing to being a James Beard semifinalist and in Texas monthly?
All right, so um, I'm an accountant.
Right.
I'm very analytical, and when I decided to figure out how to cook Texas barbecue, because what's crazy about the story, maybe it's stupid, not crazy, that I decided to do Texas barbecue because nobody was doing that around here, and even though I hadn't experienced it firsthand, the flavors, I could tell from seeing pictures of it, seeing on TV, that it was incredible. And I remember watching, just as a fan, watching barbecue pitmasters, just as a fan, watching Triple D, diners, drive-ins, and dives, and
Yeah.
both of those, they really don't go deep into technique, but they relay in a foundation, because my brain, the way that it watches these shows, like, okay, so he did this, he did this, he did
Hmm.
this,
Hmm.
and again, we're talking 2015, 2016 ish. There was a lot more training, informational material on YouTube or on the internet, but it's nothing like it is today.
Right.
No way. But a significant amount of trial and error, like with a lot of guys who are part of my class of getting into this, is that um, a tremendous amount of trial and error, because there are so many things that none of these videos would ever tell you about, like how to hot hold.
Hmm.
And that's where the camaraderie with some of these other pit masters, had I not been friends with these guys, and it was a two-way street. Like, hey man, I did this and this happened. Have you ever seen that before? And he was friendly responding, yeah, I've seen that. I tried this. And so then I go back the next time. And so, how did we figure this out? And how has my brain approached this in city limits is, um, uh, the, the, the guiding light, if you will, was back to that original light bulb turning on in my head was, what if somebody did this but did higher quality barbecue in higher quality sides? So part of the journey for me was not only figuring out how to cook the meats properly, and man, I wouldn't say that I really figured out what I was doing. Although, let me caveat that it's always evolving. I'm always figuring out new stuff. So it's not. I know what I'm doing, but I wouldn't say that I know everything. But not by any means. But it took years years of a tremendous amount of mediocre and sometimes not so good barbecue to build a foundation of understanding all the things not to do and all the things to do to get me here. And same with the sides and everything else that we have on our menu, which I think collectively that's where the James Beard thing came in, is that almost I can't think of anything on my menu that was just a throw it together, bam, there it is. That's the best thing ever, in the way that we created City Limits, kind of was very fortunate on how this all played out. That from the get-go, I said, I don't have the money to go out and build a restaurant. And I think also the accountant in me said, I don't think that'd be a smart idea because so many restaurants fail. And I knew that, trying to get traction with the customers was going to be one of the biggest hurdles. You got to cook good food, but number two, you got to get people in there to eat it. And, you've got to spend a ton of money on advertising or, just through longevity, create a following. And that's what we ended up lucking into, is that I didn't give up. I just stuck around for so long that people just kept on coming. And with so many of those customers we become friends with, they were part of the process also, that, each week, if I'm tweaking recipes, because I've built this rapport with my customers, I say, hey, last week's macaroni, I thought it was really good when I sold it to you, but check this out. I just did this little tweak to it. You tell me if you like it better than what you had last week. And so it was it really was a community effort, that every week we are trying to make it better than the last, with the unattainable and unrealistic expectation of making it perfect. And the reality is you'll never make it perfect. But as I preach to my guys or my whole crew, and what I've always preached to them, that's our standard. That's what we're trying to get to. And if it doesn't meet that standard, it's got to hit the trash, or we got to figure out a way to repurpose it, because that's not what City Limits is. And it's the accountant in me hates hearing me talk about this, but this has evolved to being, without a doubt, a passion project, more so than figuring out how to make the most money that I can, because the way that we've approached how we do so many things, there are so many opportunities to cut corners. And we cut corners in certain things, like we don't make our own mayo, we don't bake our own bread, we don't make our own ketchup, and we don't make our own pasta, but we make our own bacon. We make our own pickles, we do all this stuff. And so so many things. Vaguely remember your original question. So many things are on this bus together that are driving us down the City Limits street, with the focus of doing what we do, which is to serve you the best bite we can within price reason. And so I hope that I answered your question. I'm not sure.
Yeah, definitely. And you definitely did a great job in talking a little bit about what your mission and your strategy is in the business. Talk me a little bit through the evolution of it. I know you kind of got started as a food truck, and now you got a brick and mortar location. So, how did you make those decisions to go from, moving around to different locations in the food truck to anchoring down and getting a location there in West Columbia?
So the whole idea was to build this into a business. And I've had I've had plenty of hobbies in the past that I thought would be businesses, but it turned out they weren't going to be businesses for one reason or another. And so this, from day one, the idea was to make it into a business. And but I knew that we had to create that energy with the customers,
Right.
because otherwise it doesn't matter how good the food is. If nobody comes to eat the food, you're going to fail as a restaurant. Part of that equation is you got to make good food to get people to come in. And the shtick and what's the word, gimmicks is only going to take you so long.
Right.
The advertising is only going to take you so long, because if people come in and have the food, they're not going to keep coming back, especially if it's expensive. And a ding that I get all the time is how pricey my food is. That's a function of how we're doing it, not a function of me trying to get rich by any means. But how did we get to brick and mortar? Was that the first couple of years was me figuring out how to cook this stuff to where I felt comfortable. Say, hey, you know what? I think that we got something that the people like, that we can scale. And so that started in 2017, 2018. I started looking for brick and mortars. And so, that started a crazy train of ups and downs, which I'm sure a lot of guys in my position have gone through. The biggest thing is that unless you have an investor, it's almost impossible to open up a brick and mortar unless you're independently wealthy.
Right.
Banks usually don't lend money to you unless you've already got money, right? Okay, so restaurants are risky to begin with. They have low margins, and they're a high risk for a lender. So that's not the best option. But I was hell bent on finding a place and figuring out a creative way to get myself into that place. And so the other thing that's going on is I had a full-time job, and if we jumped into a brick and mortar spot that was going to be insanely expensive, that mean the numbers mean that if you got to make a $3,000-$5,000 a month rent, then you back into the numbers. That means you got to sell like $100,000 worth of barbecue a month, or just as an example. Well,
right.
That's $25,000 of barbecue a week. Guys listening to this podcast that have a little pop up, that have a small brick and mortar and don't understand the numbers, that's a hell of a lot of barbecue. It's easy to cook. It's way easier to cook that much barbecue. It is exponentially harder to sell that much barbecue, because there's so many factors that go into how do you sell it? Are you open 7 days a week? Well, that's a whole nother truckload of problems. And so if you only open a few days a week, are people going to be buying beef ribs on Thursday night? That's the high ticket item on my menu. We sell out on Saturdays when we have them, but to generate big revenue, those generate a lot of revenue because they're so expensive. But if we put beef ribs on the menu on Thursday, they're not going to sell, because most people in our part of the world, in the Southeast, we're not Dallas, Texas, we're not Houston, we're not Austin with Thursday night money to go out and spend. Right. And so once I said in my brain, in my head, I think that we should pursue a brick and mortar. I looked at 15 or 20 places over the years. And again, I'm sorry, I think I started something and forgot to talk about it. When I looked at going into a brick and mortar, it was going to basically require me to quit my job, which is cash flow coming in, being able to be used for the restaurant. So burning that bridge, or severing that tie, when we found these 15 or 20 places, about half of them made it past the first wave of, hey, do we think we can do a brick and mortar here? Yes or no? And so the half of those that made it, I think we can make it here. Each one of them had its own unique challenges. And a great example is, you're looking at a $3,000 or $5,000 a month rent payment. Well, keeping the math as simple as possible. Let's say you got to do 25 grand a week of barbecue sales. You break that down into, like, let's say that Saturday you do half of that, 12.5. Now you've got to sell $12,000 of food on a few other days of the week. Well, a couple of these places that I initially looked at had like 10 parking spaces with no off-street parking. And so think about trying to sell on Saturday $12,000 worth of barbecue in a small window of time with 10 parking spaces.
Right. Not enough volume.
And so, but over the years, these, I can't remember what numbers be, like 7 to 10 places that I thought, well, I want to try it. Okay. So those 7 to 10 places I tried to lease or buy, one way or the other. They didn't work out. Each one was its own unique thing that I had to figure out, well, this doesn't have this that I think we really need, but I don't have any other options at this time, or no other prospects at this time. And so just dead end after dead end. And man, I'm not going to kid you. It was last spring. I was renting this warehouse and I had some cash and say, well, I can't find any place else. Why don't we just go ahead and build a commercial kitchen here? And I started on the build out, and the whole time I'm thinking, this is going to be tough doing this here, because we were going to do a food truck model, not like a brick and mortar restaurant. It was going to be more like a ghost kitchen, that we were going to send the food truck out to somebody else's place 2 or 3 times a week and try to generate revenue. It can be very difficult, and but I didn't have any other options, and the other option was to quit. Around that time, I had a dang appendicitis in the middle of a cook, and like that was a whole side story of craziness. That at 5 p.m. on Friday, with the smoker loaded with briskets and the other smoker loaded with shoulders, pain level just came out of nowhere, and I called my friend in ER. I said, "Hey man, are you working? I think I need to come." So I drove to hospital. That's a separate story for a separate time. But so anyway, there were all these challenges last spring, late last winter, last spring, and I'm like, man, I don't know. And where I'm sitting at right now was this really sketchy, funky looking place that I'd never been in. It had been 2 restaurants before, but I had noticed on Facebook that they had it appeared that a disgruntled employee had posted some unflattering pictures, and they killed the restaurant. They basically closed. And when I saw that, this place is like literally right down the road from where I was at, and I drove over here almost immediately, made contact with the owner of the restaurant and say, "Hey, you mind if I check this out real quick?" She said no. And I was thinking, maybe I can help this person out. If they're closing and, they're on their lease or something, maybe I can jump in and save them. Because what this place had, and this is advice to any pop-up guys, food truck guys or whatever, what this place had that there were 2 types of places that I was finding. Those were nice restaurants that were very expensive, that had full kitchens in them, or there were buildings like in the right location that didn't have a commercial kitchen in them, that was going to require upfit for fire suppression system and all that stuff. Both of those were expensive in their own way. Yeah, but this place, I mean, it looks raggedy from the road, but it was a permitted kitchen, and I was like, Let me check it, man. It's got a permitted kitchen. It's got a vent hood. It's permitted, which means that it had to check everything off. And I got in touch with the owner ASAP, and we made a kind of a handshake, good old boy deal pretty quick. And
Right.
next thing I know, we had a lease signed, and it was this was the right building at the right time, the right landlord. All that being said, this building's tried to kill me in so many ways because if you ever have the chance to come, anybody watching this podcast, when you have a chance to come here, 90% of all the floors here are not flat. There's been so much craziness that we've had to deal with at this location. That being said, every day I think, and I tell people, when you drive up, this is undoubtedly a funky barbecue joint because I can show you something right here. It's really funny. Can you see this window behind me?
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So a country boy built this place mostly out of scrap from his farm. This window, there's 6 of them in this dining room. This is a sliding glass door turned sideways. So that's the kind of country boy ingenuity that was used to build this place, and that's why I'm saying that I'm so fortunate that none of the other places worked out. This place checks so many of the boxes that I was looking for.
Right.
I would have liked to have had the smokers out front where people could see them driving by. I always dubbed that or called that barbecue theater. And I thought that was going to be important to our success, that people could like drive by and say, wow, that looks like a real deal barbecue joint. But we figured out how to make that happen in the back so that when people are standing in line to order, I designed our smoker layout so like there's a window. You're like 10 feet away from the smokers, and you can like literally see us, doing the work. They're not hidden in the back or in a closed off smokehouse. So, how did we go from food truck into city limits? Where we're at here, we call it Smoky Hollow. It's city limits, but the building itself we call Smoky Hollow. How did we get here? Man, it was nothing short of the road less travel, a crazy train of ups and downs, and I'll be damned if it didn't work out that I think that I'm in the right building. Time will tell, but
So from that building, and let's talk a little bit more about that experience. You kind of started going down that path. If I show up on a Saturday or a Sunday, tell me what to expect. What can somebody expect when they arrive there at Smoky Hollow?
So we are a Texas barbecue joint, and maybe to take a step back, because I enjoy talking about barbecue and business, but I enjoy talking to the customers and explaining what we're doing, because most of them, we become really popular really quick. So we got a lot of new people coming in that don't know what we're doing and why we're doing it. And so, excuse me, we are a Texas barbecue joint. And that was a strategic decision early on, because I didn't want to compete head to head with the local pork barbecue places. I thought the accountant in me said, that was going to be, excuse me, we could cook incredible pork barbecue, but I really felt that just like me, that you go to have the fancy barbecue, the fancy pork barbecue this weekend, and then the next weekend you fall back into what you're accustomed to, what you grew up eating. And so that really helped drive us down the Texas barbecue road. And as I got into the Texas barbecue, I realized that this was absolutely the right decision, because the camaraderie, the network, the Texas barbecue family, I'm so glad that I realized that early on, that this was the right decision. So that doesn't mean that I didn't want to cook incredible pork barbecue. So.
Right, because there's a Carolina piece of it too, right?
Yes, and for years I struggle, and so this is part of the. It is taking a long time to figure out how to do this. For years, I struggled to get pulled pork where I thought that it tasted good. We had always served it without sauce. I thought I always put out a good product, but not until the last about year or so did I really have that light bulb go off. And so now back to your question, so what do people expect whenever they come here? They're going to see a Texas style line service or a counter service. And that means that you show up, we open up, and this really originated out of the meat market style barbecue joints in Texas, where you would have a butcher, a meat market that would have cuts of meat that weren't sold, that needed to be repurposed, and so they would cook them, turn them into barbecue. But they'd have a counter set up, and so people would come in, order food at the counter, and I guess eat it there or take home. So in the spirit of modern Texas barbecue, we have this counter service where people come in, they line up, and what I always thought was really, really important to how we would be successful is that direct personal interaction where I'm really big on making sure that we try to ask a candid, "Hey, how you doing?" Not a at the line at McDonald's drive-through, not even looking at you with the "thank you, here's your change," but like really engaging with the customer so that we can start to build a rapport with them, and then have the opportunity to explain what we're doing, number one. But number two, this counter service is very unique for our area. Nobody else is doing a counter service at a brick and mortar. I'm trying to make sure that I'm not missing somebody new. Nobody's doing a direct interaction counter service here in the Midlands of South Carolina. Apologies if I forgot y'all. I'm sure y'all let me know in the comments. But and we're weighing meats to order. I'm sorry. We're weighing meats to order. But what that allows us to also do is to engage with the customer to explain what they're looking at. And so beef ribs is the best example, because a lot of people know what brisket. Not everybody, but around here, a lot of people know what brisket is. There's 10, 20% that don't quite understand what brisket is. And so, we explain it to them, and we have the opportunity right in front of them, say, here's a brisket, take a slice off. They ask, well, how much should I order? It's like, well, tell you what we'll do, let's slice a couple pieces off. Let's put it on the scale, and you can tell me, is that too much, or do you want me to keep on adding slices to it? And so that's a very unique model. Beef ribs is the opportunity. Maybe 60, 70% of the customers who come in understand what they're ordering. But the new customers, they see it on TV or they hear about it through a Facebook post or something. Say, hey, let me get a rack of beef ribs, and so I pull out a rack of beef ribs. It's like, are you okay? So this is a beef rib rack. It's 3 bones, and then I go into the spiel of this is how we do. The way that we do beef ribs is because they're so expensive. We actually take out the center bone. We use the short plate rib 3-bone rack. We take out the center bone, and we do what's called a double cut. So you're getting more meat to bone ratio, which is it's a better deal. It makes the beef rib bigger and way more expensive, but I try to explain to them the economics that way. You're paying for less bone, so yes, I know it's expensive. However, it's tied with the best bite in barbecue, with a couple other bites of barbecue that we may have on our menu. And so that's the Texas aspect of it. But now back to the pork barbecue aspect of it, because I think that's an important part of our story. That what I figured out about a year and a half ago, we'll take it a step back. I had this 500-gallon offset Texas style cooker that I couldn't sell. And it was just sitting there because I had a 1,000-gallon pit that I was using as my workhorse. And this little 500-gallon, it just wasn't being used. And I was cooking all of the pork ribs and in the butts or shoulders on the 1,000-gallon offset style, Texas style, with a rub. And so I started playing around with the 500-gallon pit. why don't I throw a couple sheet pans down in the belly of it? And I played around with this on the 1,000-gallon, but
Mm-hmm.
it was too risky because there was too much oil and fat in the bottom of it for a fire risk.
Mm-hmm.
But the 500-gallon, it was clean, it was pristine because I was trying to sell it. I said, well, let me throw a couple sheet pans underneath there. Let me experiment with cooking direct over coal. So I think I started off with maybe a couple just regular butts, and I was like, wow, okay. I was like, wow, this has that direct cook flavor. Direct over that Carolina style direct over coal
Mm-hmm.
flavor, and so that started me working on trying to figure out how do I get really close to whole hog without doing whole hog, because whole hog to do it right takes a lot of practice. I mean, you got to be very, in my opinion, you got to be pretty skillful to cook all those different proteins on
Mm-hmm.
that hog without overcooking any of them.
Mm-hmm.
But they're
Mm-hmm.
all connected, and
Yeah.
so that's one thing that's the yield on it's problematic. The amount of wood you have to burn is problematic, and so I was thinking, I wonder if I could replicate whole hog, but just with the best parts of the whole hog. And I started with just shoulders, and I used what's called a long cut, skin on long cut, which is the
Mm-hmm.
picnic and the butt. And man, I was just so lucky that pit that I had, that the distance was just far enough that it didn't burn up the meat the first few times, because I would have given up
Yeah.
after burning a couple $100 worth of meat. It's like, well, I need to stop wasting money. It's raining. I don't know if you can hear that rain, but so I just kept on tweaking and tweaking, and so I was getting a really, really, really good direct over coal flavor. Um, from the shoulders, and so then I go to Scott's in Hemingway, and
Mm-hmm.
and so my gripe with whole hog is that it's it's like maybe getting lottery tickets or scratch offs. 9 out of 10 you don't win jack squat, but then that 10th one, you won $10, so it paid for the ticket.
Yeah.
Or it's like golf. You go out and you hit you play around and you have like two or three good shots. And so like my experience with whole hog is that I'd go get these trays, and if it wasn't like a backyard pig picking where you could like kind of manage what you were
Mm-hmm.
getting, like if
Mm-hmm.
you were at a restaurant, some it was like a lottery. Sometimes you get a great tray, sometimes you didn't, and sometimes you get that loin that was really dried out. But then sometimes, and this is what happened at Scott's 2 Januaries ago. So January of last year, I was at Scott's with my son. I got a tray, and at this time, I'd already been experimenting with the direct over coal,
Mm-hmm.
and I got a piece of belly in it, and I was like, oh my gosh, and I had that light bulb go off.
Yeah.
I was like, how do I incorporate this into my pulled pork? So then that started this process where I'm at today, is that we're not doing whole hog. I joke around that we're doing like an eighth of a whole hog, but we're not doing whole hog. But I think that we're putting out something that is a pretty damn solid bite of barbecue, where we're cooking the shoulder skin on. We're cooking skin on pork bellies beside them, both of them direct over coals.
Mm-hmm.
And then Saturday morning, we're pulling them like we would normally do, and we're mixing that pork belly, which pulls spaghetti style just like whole
Mm-hmm.
hog, but we can far more precisely manage the cook of it. It's done. I want to say perfectly, that it's cooked the way that we want it to be cooked,
Yeah.
and pull it off the pit so that if you do whole hog, the belly's sticking with that whole hog the whole time. Just like the loin's going to stay with it the whole time unless you pull it off mid cook. So, what do people just dovetailing back into your original question? What do people expect whenever they come here? They're going to expect the Texas line service, and they're going to expect, I think, really good a great representation of Texas barbecue. But on the down low, I think that we've got incredibly solid Carolina style barbecue. So we do the pulled pork, but we also do the ribs direct over coals as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought we could, pull the rib meat just like whole hog and like mix it all together. But I think the ribs stand out on their own. So
Mm.
I've decided to just sell those separately. But one thing that's really unique that I'm not sure who else does. There's other guys who do Texas barbecue and Carolina barbecue at their barbecue joint. One things I think may be unique to us is that we package all of that pork that we pull Saturday morning into individual containers. And what I found over the years is that if you pack all that pulled pork into, say, a 4 or 6 inch pan, that over a course of 30 minutes or an hour or two, that if there's any fat left with that pork, it'll drip down to the bottom of the pan.
Mm.
And if you're unfortunate that you didn't get it stirred before you got served, excuse me, if you got that pull right off the top, sometimes it has a high risk of being a little bit drier than what may be at the bottom of the pan. So
Mm-hmm.
what we started doing, and this is part of something that we learned in the pandemic, just to serve food faster, number one. But then I realized that if we individually package all this stuff into half pounds and pounds before we even open, I think that we can make sure that any fat that was with that half pound stays with that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that customer gets that bite of our pulled pork without any sauce. But the thing that I think we may have a little unique twist on is that there's a lot of places around here that are buffets, and they'll have they'll phrase it like they have 3 types of barbecue. And being a Carolina boy, when I say we got 3 types of barbecue, we're talking about 3 types of pulled pork.
Mm-hmm.
Or you got yellow sauce pork, you got vinegar pork, and you got red sauce or heavy tomato pork. Well, the reality is those are all the same barbecue pork, just with different sauces on it. And so what we're doing, what we have the way that we've kind of designed how we do our service is that since everything's packaged up pulled pork, you step up to the counter. If you're there for Texas barbecue, we definitely want to take care of you for Texas barbecue. But where we're at, we are in cook over coal country, pulled pork country, and people come in. And we got a lot of North Carolina transplants here as well. But people come in here and they start reading the menu. So you can have pulled pork, but we also offer actual chopped pork where we do a little splash of vinegar sauce to, as Sam Jones would describe it, dressing it. We're not trying to sauce it. We're just dressing it with a tad bit of vinegar that has a tad bit of heat and tad bit of salt in it. And then now back to the technique of the pork that we're cooking is that we're cooking skin on shoulders and we're cooking skin on bellies. Well, the skin on shoulders, we crisp those skins up and we sell those skins whole, and we call them chicharrones so that people don't get grossed out that we have skins. But the skin on belly, it's only on the smoker for about 4 hours or so. So it doesn't have quite as much of a deep flavor profile. And so that skin, we will crisp it up also, but we'll save that for a Eastern North Carolina style chopped with skin, which is one of my barbecue aha moments, similar to that experience at Scott's two jammers ago, was I was at Euphoria Greenfield 2017 or 18, and they stuck me beside Sam Jones, and I'd never had high quality whole hog like that before, and so I was right there, right beside him. I got one of the first bites that he had chopped up, and he had chopped in the skins with it, and without a doubt, that was one of my mind blowing. It's like, wow, it's like we've been living a lie here in Lexington. Why have we ever had this before? But there's so many things on my menu, like the beef rib, like the brisket, like the sausage, the beef sausages. Like, why hasn't anybody ever done this here before? And I realized that we're not in beef town. We're not a beef town. We're a pork and a chicken zone here in the Southeast. But that being said, why hasn't anybody ever done the chopped pork with skins? I mean, it's phenomenal. And so, back to your question.
Well,
people come
let me
in
let me
for the
move
Texas barbecue
on to your
sticks.
question here because I feel like you really
Sure,
got me a good response, a good feel for what I'm going to get there. I want to talk about the Carolina
sure.
Barbecue Festival and how you got in hooked up with those guys and why you decided to participate and really, you know, it's supporting some great causes in the barbecue for a cause with Operation Barbecue Relief. And what's it mean for you to first be a part of that, and how did you do that, and what's it mean for you to support these worthy charities?
Yeah, love supporting charities whenever I can.
Hmm.
Uh, I love feeding the public. I love hanging around my barbecue buddies, and so
Yeah.
um, up till now, we haven't really gone through a whole festival season. Now that we're finally a brick and mortar, we do stuff occasionally back when we were a food truck, but um, having been on the outside for a few years, seeing the Carolina Barbecue Festival going on, it's like, oh man, that'd be cool if I could go up there one day and preach our gospel. Because as you've probably seen
Yeah,
in this, I'm I feel that I'm pretty passionate about what we're doing, and
definitely.
I think I know what we're going to serve up there, which is going to be, I'm not going to say what it is right now, but it's going to be a representation um, of my little clique of the world here uh, with respect to Carolina barbecue.
Hmm.
So I'm excited to come up there and I wouldn't say show off, but just show everybody what we're doing down here.
Yeah, very cool. So, obviously you said it, you've definitely got a lot of passion about the barbecue and the business and what you're doing, but what do you feel like you enjoy most about being a pit master and operating City Limits Barbecue?
Um, Making people connect either with my food and make a core memory, or whenever people remember one of their core memories that probably related to barbecue. And I've had people tell me some of these stories, and that's kind of in part why the stuff that we cook is the way that we cook it. And so um, the collard greens, for example, when we have people from all walks of life tell us their experience with our collard greens and
Hmm.
how they were better than their grandmas, or their grandma's going to get mad if she finds out, and so that makes us all worthwhile. That I I joke to myself sometimes, man, I hope I'm not making a mistake doing this, but when I get that feedback, it resonates with me that my original vision was to create the best food that I can, with my limited skill set, but to produce the best food that I can to make people happy. And the way that I've approached this as a business, I've honestly I've felt that if I could do that, the business side of it would take care of itself. That the
Hmm.
people line up, and I'm incredibly blessed that people are lining up, and we're it doesn't matter if you're a VIP. It doesn't matter if you're a hobo that comes in here. Everybody's going to get the same service and the same uh, food that everybody's going to get. And it all goes back to me trying to connect with you or have you remember one of your connections to have that warm, fuzzy feeling inside.
Yeah, yeah, fantastic. So, we mentioned the James Beard nomination and the semifinalist recognition. How do you feel like that's affected your business since that news came out a little bit earlier this year?
Honestly, I had no idea that I'd ever be here, doing interviews with people talking about me being a James Beard semifinalist. And so um, it's definitely helped the business. It's definitely created a lot of pressure. But in the past, when I've had VIPs come in, long before the brick and mortar, when I knew that somebody famous or a writer or somebody was going to come have our food, early on, I had this one experience early on where I freaked out. I was like, oh my gosh, so oh my gosh, and then I took a breather and I realized, well, we're not going to change. Got to say this differently. If I'm going to change something, how I'm cooking it for this person, why wasn't I doing it that way to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And so once I had that realization, this was about 5 years ago. Um, it's been it's been like a guiding force that, like, if we're not doing it the way that we think we should be doing it, we need to change the way that we're doing it, or we need to not do it at all. And so now fast forward to the James Beer thing, we're going to keep on trucking, doing the exact same thing that we've been doing. We're continually adding to our menu, because I feel like we're still in the growth phase with the brick and mortar. I mean, we will be for the next year, 2, 3 years, and we will continue to evolve. But we're continually adding stuff that I wanted on the menu. For example, our stone ground grits on the menu. They're just grits, and that's what I do on the menu. So we got collards, we got charro beans, we got grits, slaw, and potato salad. And we don't go into the insane descriptions of what all it is, but our grits, for example, I consulted with multiple big time chefs, like, how would you do this? And then I did my own research. And so we're making a pretty dang solid grits for grits that, like with, I think, the other things on the menu, when you come in just off the street, whether you know that we're James Beard or not, you're going to have a bite of this stuff and be like, whoa, man, that's pretty dang good grits. People, so those rolled out 2 weeks ago on the menu. So we're, I guess, I don't want to say we're having to pay more attention to everything that we're doing, because before, anytime we rolled something out, we were already dotting I's, crossing T's, and freaking out, like, are they going to like it? Did we execute it? Is the menu right? I mean, not the menu right, but it's the recipe right on this. So, we're just going to keep on trucking, doing what we're doing.
That's a nice segue to my next question. What is coming next? What do you feel like your next goal or your next achievement? What's next for City Limits Barbecue?
We're going to figure out how to add service another day. You know what? This is a great segue into maybe a couple other points that we briefly touched on before. We do our full barbecue menu on Saturday, and we're open 11 to 5. We do what I call a freestyle menu on Sunday. And the way I've kind of just started describing this to people is that, and it's not entirely right, but it's a fun way to think about this, is that on Saturday, our menu is our James Beard menu, that where we've really tried to pay attention to everything. That being said, our Sunday menu, we try to really pay attention to everything, but it's more fun. So Sunday, I describe it as our Triple D menu. And so we've got all kinds of sandwiches, like our smoked pork belly banh mi. We've got frequently showing up on the menu as a Chicago-style chopped brisket Italian beef. We've got smoked wings. We've got a different style of rib on Sunday. And so we have really completely different menus on Saturday versus Sunday. And the reason is because we only have a couple smokers, and our smoker utilization, getting all nerdy real quick, we use our primary smoker 1.5 days for our barbecue Saturday. So the last thing comes off around 10:30 or 11 a.m. Saturday morning for that full barbecue service. And if we were to do that exact same menu on Sunday, we got food in the pit for Saturday when we need to have had food in the pit for Sunday. And so we need to add a smoker or two, which I'm working on. And the goal is to add another day of service. And this is where the business aspect of it is. What I want to do is a slightly unique barbecue menu, like maybe a pure West Columbia, South Carolina barbecue menu, which would have very little to any beef on it. It'd be more of a pork menu, and that dovetails in to the issue with the price points with the area that we're in. Because what day am I going to do on? Am I going to do a barbecue lunch on Wednesday, or a barbecue lunch on Thursday or Friday? And the reality is we could sell $30+ a pound brisket on Wednesday, but we're not going to sell a lot of it. And so the time and effort that goes into that. But I think that if we had a pretty quick and easy to get in and out barbecue sandwich menu, some hash and rice, potato salad, slaw, sweet tea, I think that that'll work. So, what's the next step for City Limits? We've got to figure out how to add another day of service. We're going to continue to evolve what's on our menu. We're selling so much food right now. It's I want to have this concept of a grab and go fridge where people can not have to deal with the line or come when we're not having our normal service, come in, grab a pint of hash, a pint of or a pound of chopped brisket, or some pulled pork, take it home, eat it, whenever you want, some chili, all the stuff that we have. So, but the blessing of becoming popular of late is that we're so busy. We're some days it's like catching fallen knives in a good way. And so, and for sure, if it sounded like I was complaining at any point here, I am absolutely not. I am beyond blessed and fortunate for the position that we're in. That so this is not an easy business. And I recognize that the problems I have are problems that people dream of having. How do we cook more food because we keep selling out situation? And so I don't want to come off as sounding like I'm complaining. It's just I'm working as hard as I can, as much as I can, trying to figure out how to solve some of these good problems that some fortunate problems that we have.
Yeah, fantastic. And a fortunate problem we have, we're coming up on the end of our time. You've been very generous with that time. And before we go, I want to take us through our low and slow showdown. And these are just kind of quick hitters, maybe one word answers, and I'll follow up if anything kind of piques the interest a little bit more. But we're going to dive right into it with, do you use or prefer gas, charcoal, pellets, or wood?
Wood.
What kind?
Free.
Free, but apart from free, you can't beat free. I mean, I got pecan trees out in the yard. That's what I want to use. But what do you generally try to use there at City Limits?
So back to that whole hog, the way that we're cooking over coal. So one of the crazy things that's happened since the pandemic is prices of firewood have gone up like insane. And so, excuse me. For my big 1,000-gallon pit, I use a pre-cut hickory. I do that because of the coal and the heat. I feel like I can burn less of it versus oak. But over on the direct over coals, we use a scrap product that's a mix of hickory and oak. And what I was able to get my hands on is a commercial lumber place. When they do the processing for the cut sticks, well, every tree doesn't come in the precise length, and a lot of trees come in with knobby branches and all this stuff, and so they have to clean all that up, and so they have this massive scrap pile that's a lot of really good hardwood, and so we burn that in the burn barrel, and dollars and cents, it's way cheaper burning that than the hickory, and so. I used to cut as much wood as I can, and the reality is I turned 50 a couple months ago. Barbecue, my shoulder is my shoulder, my hip, my back, my ankle, my knee, my whole right side needs to be totaled and rebuilt. But otherwise, I'd be splitting my own wood because it's crazy how expensive this stuff has gotten.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so you prefer pork, beef, chicken, or something else?
If the chicken's fried, I prefer fried chicken. If the it's like picking your favorite kid, man. If it's barbecued, I've traveled all over the dang place between here and in Austin and up north, down south, having barbecue I've had barbecue at incredible places. I've had barbecue at horrible places. I've had some mind-blowing, almost everything that you just described. I've had mind-blowing bites of all of them, and depending on how the wind's blowing one day, I say, give me a bite of beef rib. On another day, I say, give me a bite of that chopped barbecue with skin. On another day, if I could have that tender, smoky, smoked chicken. Another day, pork ribs direct over coals. And another day, indirect cooked ribs with sweet sauce on them. I can't. I don't think I could pick one, but I can. I can say that if all those choices, if fried chicken was a choice, I'd probably pick fried chicken on that, and fried pork chops would be number two.
Yeah, hey, nothing wrong with that. What is your favorite side?
Uh, my go-to, so the way to figure that out is when I go to a new barbecue joint or when I go to an old barbecue joint, what are my go-tos? Uh, Potato salad and mac are my two go-tos. In part because I'm always number one, I really enjoy both of those, but number two, I'm always looking to try to improve what we're doing. I think we got a really good product now, but you know, if I go to some random place and I have this potato salad and it's just mind blowing, like, oh my gosh, what are the flavor components here? I got to figure
Mm-hmm.
out, how do I get that? But my my favorite barbecue or my favorite side, I guess, is my favorite barbecue side is Sheely's Barbecue, which is a buffet. They have these green beans that I've been eating since I was a kid, and they are probably the most unhealthy green beans. They must have a tremendous amount of fat in them or something. But when I go there, I'll get like half the plate is green beans, and the other half is fried chicken, pork chops, and some barbecue. And so those green beans, in my opinion, are oh my gosh! And if anybody's watching this that knows their recipe, feel free to feel free to shoot me an email.
Yeah, hey, that's the secret we've been looking for. Sheely's green beans are where it's at. We got to check those out. So, if we're keeping it
Yes.
moving here, do you have a favorite barbecue celebrity pitmaster?
Um, Favorite barbecue celebrity pitmaster. Um, I don't know. No, I'm friends with so many guys that are like major leagues. I
Yes.
feel like I'm like in the double A, triple A mode. Getting into the brick and mortar, I bumped up from instructional league to double A. I jumped single A, but um, I'm not sure. Thinking about it, like if I could go cook with one person, who would that be? I'm
Yeah.
not sure um, who that would be. No, I got tremendous respect for so many of these students because important thing to point out when I talked about how when I got in when I bought that first pit back in the 2000, there was nothing on the internet. Well, I mean there was, but there really wasn't anything on the internet
Yeah.
to teach. And
Limited.
then in the mid 2000s, you started to see a trickle of stuff coming on, and that really came out of people being inspired from barbecue pit masters and posting
Hmm.
content on the YouTube or other platforms. And so, there's a legion of, or there's a core of guys who really cut their teeth in Texas in the mid 2000s that really were trailblazers with um, differentiating this new school craft barbecue versus the old school barbecue. And so I don't think that I can pick um, any one particular guy. And if I gave you a name after we get off this podcast, I'd probably say, "Oh my gosh, I totally forgot about so and so," which is probably who I really want. But in no, I can't. I can't nail it down to one. Sorry, that's not
That's okay. That's a great
fun.
non-answer. You answered it without answering it. Hey, on to the next one. What is the best state in these United States for barbecue?
What's the best state?
Yeah.
Um, Man, I don't know. Um, well, so I'm going to change your question a little bit. As well, I don't know, man. That's an impossible question. You know, the Carolinas and Texas, I think, definitely have a leg up on most of the states. And let me do a little cheerleading for South Carolina. I think Texas will always be Texas. Um, we're a Texas barbecue joint. We're not in Texas, but we are a Texas barbecue
Hmm.
joint. But Texas is always going to be Texas. North Carolina, um, just North Carolina. You got your regions up there, and here in South Carolina, we have our regions. But I think that we've got a look. I don't know how to describe this. I feel like because I don't want to throw anybody, any state under the bus, but I think that we've got some really good energy going on right now in South Carolina.
Okay.
We got Dylan,
Yeah.
Dylan from Fort Grove, who's going to be at Carolina Festival. He's up in Anderson. There's Tay and Fountain Inn, and you got all the guys down in Charleston. You got
Yeah.
Palmyra, Hector has
Hmm.
just opened us up, but you got Lewis's flagship. You got Home Team. You got Swig and Swan. You got Robbie Scott's, and so you've got this kind of like new wave. North Carolina, again, North Carolina has their way, but I'm trying to cheerlead for South Carolina. That
Sure.
I think that we've got like a lot of really good vibe and energy going on right now, and so maybe if I have to pick a state because of the diversity that we're also bringing to the table. Can you still hear me?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
It's raining like crazy here.
Yeah.
Okay, so okay, you're forcing me into an answer. South Carolina.
That's nothing wrong with that. So, if you're going to pick a favorite Carolina barbecue style, what is it? Is it going to be, the Eastern Carolina? Is it going to be like Lexington style with the tomato, or is it mustard?
Well, I grew up on mustard, um, and that's my preference. And to talk about this being a business that I didn't touch on before, um, part of this was figuring out what people wanted to eat, but also part of this was me figuring out. I'm talking about city limits. Um, Me figuring out how to do what I think is the best representation of something, and so we consciously have tried to make the meat the star to show and not
Hmm.
the sauce. But
Yeah.
at the same time, I've always told people I don't mind if you put sauce on our meats. Um, there's some of our meats where whenever I eat it at home, I put sauce on it because that's what my personal preference is.
Hmm.
And so, it depends on the meat. But when we're talking about Carolina barbecue, where I'm from, when we talked about earlier about you having that core memory, taking you back to when you were eating barbecue with your dad, one of my core memories is when my mom and dad would cook barbecue chicken or barbecue ribs on the grill in yellow sauce, which has sugar in it. When you would get that magic bite of where it caramelized perfectly, because the reality was is at least half of what they cooked was burned. It was all burned all to hell, crispy. But there was that 10 or 20% that was in the perfect zone, and it was with the yellow sauce. And so
Yeah.
I enjoy yellow sauce on the pork, particularly with the pork. We don't sell any yellow sauce pork ribs, and we don't sell any yellow sauce pork. But when I'm at home, if I got some yellow sauce, I'm going to pour some of that on my pork ribs.
Good enough. All right. Last question. I know this is going to be a tough one, but is barbecue a verb or a noun?
You know, um, when I was in my first year and a half in college, I failed English 3 times in a row. And
You
I
speak
wasn't
English. How could you fail English?
I wasn't the sharpest guy. And so anytime I hear this, and I watched some of your interviews in the past years of the barbecue festival, and I heard this, and I kid you not, when I hear some things, I'm pretty quick on, but when I hear stuff like, is it a noun or a verb? Um, I got to sit down. I got to get a piece of paper and I've got to map out. Okay, so what's a verb? What's a noun? So what do they mean by it being a verb? What do you mean by a noun? The reality is that here at City Limits, because we have that Texas barbecue and we have Carolina barbecue here, um, we have we live in both the noun and the verb world, and so um, I know that. Oh my gosh, I know that some people don't like hearing that, but um, it's well, no, I don't want to go there. I'm trying to not stick my foot too far into my mouth here.
There are no
But
wrong answers.
oh my gosh, well, you need to hang out with me a little bit longer, and you may find out there are some wrong answers. But I'll go with a noun, I guess.
And that, my friends, is the lowdown from Robbie Robinson, the pitmaster at City Limits Barbecue. Robbie, thanks so much for joining the Low and Slow Barbecue Show.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Definitely. You've been listening to the Low and Slow Barbecue Show on the Mesh.tv network of podcasts. Be sure to visit us online at lowslowbbqshow.com. You can learn more about the Carolina Barbecue Festival and the other pitmasters participating in this year's event at lowslowbbqshow.com. You can also hear from Operation Barbecue Relief CEO Stan Hayes, as well as pitmasters like Dylan Cook from Fort Grove Barbecue. We talked about him in this podcast. You can also learn about Jake Wood from Lawrence Barbecue, plenty of others as well. Remember, these great Carolina pitmasters will be at the Carolina Barbecue Festival April 5th and 6th at Victoria Yards in Charlotte. Visit lowslowbbqshow.com for all the details, or get your tickets if they're still available at carolinabbqfest.org. If you like what you hear in the Low and Slow Barbecue Show, follow us and subscribe in your favorite podcast stream. And please consider our show for a 5-star rating and a review. That helps other people find us. A big thanks to all those folks who've given us the 5 stars on Apple Music already. You can also help people find us by sharing the show with your friends. Special thanks to Robbie Robinson from City Limits Barbecue. Thanks as well to our producer Andrew Moose and the whole team at the Mesh.tv network of podcasts. Most especially, thank you for listening to the Low and Slow Barbecue Show. Remember, for the best barbecue and the best barbecue podcast, make it low and slow.